Today, we need to talk about a quiet revolution that is happening at a speed that should frankly terrify every traditional oil tycoon on the planet. We are talking about China's absolute, breakneck sprint toward electric vehicles. Now, if you live anywhere else in the world, the idea of a complete EV transition probably sounds like a beautiful, distant utopian dream, or, let's be honest, a total logistical nightmare. You've heard the horror stories. You buy an EV, you love the environment, and then holiday season hits. You pull up to a highway charging station. Your bladder is screaming. Your kids are fighting in the back seat. And you find a line of 50 cars waiting for a single, sad, slow-charging plug that takes 45 minutes per vehicle. You calculate the math and realize you will be celebrating next year's holiday in that exact parking lot before your car hits 80%. It is the ultimate range anxiety nightmare, and it is currently stopping millions of people globally from ditching their petrol cars. But if you walk down a street in Shanghai or Shenzhen right now, the first thing you notice isn't the flashing neon lights or the towering skyscrapers. It is the eerie, almost sci-fi silence. The chaotic roar of internal combustion engines has been replaced by the quiet, electric hum of millions of motors. China hasn't just built a few cool electric cars. They have fundamentally re-engineered the entire physics of how a nation moves. While the rest of the world is still arguing about charging cables, China is moving at a velocity that has allowed new energy vehicles to capture over 60% of their domestic new car market. And no, they didn't do it by magic, and they certainly didn't do it by asking their citizens to just politely sit around and wait for their cars to charge. They did it by treating the EV transition not as a car problem, but as a massive, interconnected infrastructure puzzle. So, how did they solve the nightmare scenario of the flooded charging station? Well, they realized early on that a one-size-fits-all strategy is a fast track to absolute gridlock. Instead of forcing everyone to use the same plugs, they divided their population into completely different technological ecosystems. First, let's look at the absolute craziest thing they scaled up, the concept of battery swapping. Imagine if, instead of plugging your smartphone into a wall for an hour, you could just slide the back off, pop the dead battery out, slide a fully charged one in, and walk away in 15 seconds. Now imagine doing that with a 2-ton luxury SUV. It sounds like science fiction, but in China, it's just a regular Tuesday. Companies like NIO and the global battery titan Petrol looked at the traditional refueling experience and said, why are we trying to make drivers adapt to electricity? Let's make electricity adapt to the driver. When you own a swap-compatible EV in China, you enter a completely different economic universe called battery as a service, or BaaS. Here is how the economics completely flip the script. The single most expensive part of any electric car is the battery pack. It usually makes up 40% of what you pay at the dealership. Under the BaaS model, when you walk into a showroom, you don't buy the battery. You only buy the physical shell of the car, the seats, the screens, and the software. This instantly slashes up to $10,000 off the sticker price, making a premium electric vehicle cost the exact same as, or even less than, a legacy gasoline car. So, how do you pay for the energy? You treat the battery exactly like a smartphone data plan. You pay a fixed monthly subscription fee to rent access to a massive, nationwide pool of batteries. Then, when your car runs low on juice, you don't look for a plug. You open an app, and the car's AI guides you to a robotic swapping station that looks like a sleek, drive-through car wash. You pull inside, put the car in park, and let the machines take over. A robotic arm emerges from the floor, unscrews the massive, 700-kilogram depleted battery from the bottom of your chassis, drops it into an underground charging vault, grabs a fresh, 100% healthy battery, and bolts it securely back into your car. The entire process takes less than 3 minutes. You don't even have to unbuckle your seatbelt or stop your podcast. By the time you've checked a couple of notifications on your phone, you are back on the highway with a full tank of electrons. And the best part? Degradation anxiety is completely dead. In a standard EV, you are constantly terrified that after 7 years, your battery health will drop to 70% and completely destroy the resale value of your car. With swapping, you don't own the hardware, so you don't care. If you get a slightly older battery at a station, you just drive 100 kilometers and swap it for a different one. The infrastructure company manages the pool, monitors battery health remotely, and recycles the cells when they get old. But what if you don't want a subscription? What if you want to buy your car the traditional way? Well, that brings us to the second pillar of their strategy, the supercharging arms race. For the roughly 90% of the consumer market that prefers traditional plug-in cars from brands like BYD or Tesla, China skipped right past the standard slow chargers and commercialized ultra-fast high-voltage charging networks. We are talking about 5C and 6C lithium iron phosphate batteries paired with massive liquid-cooled superchargers pumping out up to 800 kilowatts of power. To put that in perspective, these chargers can take a mass-market family vehicle from 10% to 80% charge in about 8 to 12 minutes. That is exactly enough time to walk inside a highway service station, use the restroom, grab a cup of coffee, and walk back out. The car is ready to add another 400 kilometers of range before you've even finished your first sip. Now, your immediate thought might be, wait a minute, Sal. If millions of people are plugging into these ultra-fast superchargers and thousands of robotic stations are swapping batteries all at the same time, wouldn't the municipal electrical grid literally explode? And the answer is, yes, it absolutely would if they hadn't built the grid to be incredibly smart. You see, these battery swapping stations don't just serve cars. They act as massive shock absorbers for the entire city's energy network. When the city is asleep and electricity demand drops to near zero, the swapping stations slowly and safely pull power from the grid to charge up hundreds of docked batteries. When rush hour hits and everyone needs energy, the stations stop pulling power from the city and instead discharge those already charged batteries mechanically into cars. Many ultra-fast charging hubs are also built with their own massive, stationary megawatt-hour buffer batteries on site. They slowly sip power from the grid all day, storing it up like a water reservoir, so that when a vehicle plugs in demanding a massive surge of electricity, it draws from the local storage bank rather than straining the main municipal power line. This level of base-level systems engineering is exactly what has allowed them to achieve total autonomy when it comes to public transport. If you think the passenger car transformation is fast, the public transit sector is already at the finish line. China currently operates over 95% of the entire world's electric buses. Let that number sink in for a second. We are talking about over 500,000 heavy transit vehicles running entirely on clean energy. They didn't achieve this by making buses line up at civilian charging stations. Instead, they built dedicated green loops. Public buses operate on rigid, hyper-predictable schedules. They run their routes all day and return to massive municipal depots overnight, where thousands of them plug into high-power industrial chargers simultaneously during off-peak midnight hours. And for long-distance inner-city coaches that travel hundreds of kilometers between provinces, they deployed two ingenious systems: automated rooftop battery swapping, where a massive gantry crane lifts a multi-ton battery pack straight off the roof of the bus in under 5 minutes, and overhead ultra-fast pantographs. Robotic charging arms that drop down from highway canopies to shoot massive surges of electricity into the bus while the driver takes a mandatory 20-minute rest break. Even the two-wheeler market, which features an astonishing 400 million electric scooters and mopeds, follows this exact high-efficiency blueprint. Electric scooters are the absolute lifeblood of the gig economy, ridden by millions of food delivery and e-commerce workers who clear over 100 kilometers a day. If these workers had to stop and plug their scooters into a wall for 2 hours, their income would vanish. So, China built a hyper-dense network of open-air battery-swapping vending machines on almost every urban street corner. A delivery rider pulls up to a metal cabinet the size of a refrigerator, scans a QR code on their phone, and an empty locker door pops open. They slide their dead battery inside, plug it in, the door clicks shut, and a second later, a different door pops open, revealing a 100% fully charged battery. The entire transition takes 15 seconds. It has completely eliminated urban vehicle gridlock and removed the massive fire hazard of charging lithium batteries inside crowded high-rise apartments. To guarantee that people actually bought into this electric ecosystem, the government didn't just rely on technology. They used incredibly clever non-monetary nudges to eliminate friction. In megacities like Shanghai or Beijing, getting a license plate for a traditional petrol car is an absolute nightmare. You either have to enter a government lottery with terrible odds or spend upwards of $12,000 in a high-stakes auction just for the legal right to register your gasoline vehicle. But if you buy an EV, the government completely waives the fee, bypasses the lottery, and hands you a distinctive green license plate for free right on the spot. Green plate vehicles are also completely exempt from urban traffic restrictions, meaning while petrol cars are legally banned from elevated expressways during peak rush hour traffic, EVs sail right past them. For any urban professional, buying an EV became the only logical, financially sane choice. And finally, let's talk about the geopolitical elephant in the room: oil. The ultimate side effect of this hyper-accelerated transition is that China is systematically breaking its dependency on the global oil economy faster than any other country in history. The massive compounding surge in EV adoption has already permanently displaced roughly 1 million barrels of oil demand per day. Gasoline consumption in the country has officially peaked and is on a permanent structural downward slide. While they still import crude oil to feed their massive petrochemical manufacturing boom and heavy industrial shipping, their reliance on foreign oil to simply move people from point A to point B is collapsing. By vertically integrating the entire supply chain within their own borders, controlling everything from the raw lithium mines to the microchip manufacturing, all the way to the final assembly lines, they have created an insulated green economy that is heavily shielded from global oil shocks. It is a truly staggering feat of long-term planning and infrastructure design. They changed the entire environment surrounding the vehicle, removing every single point of friction until buying a conventional petrol car simply felt like an outdated, expensive chore. The rest of the world is watching, and for high-density, rapidly growing nations, the lesson is crystal clear. If you want to transition to a clean transport future without drowning your cities in infrastructure gridlock, you cannot just install a few standard plugs and hope for the best. You have to think like a system, divide your technology, and build a network that keeps the wheels turning. That is how China did it, and that is how the future is being rewritten. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Let Sal Explain. If this deep dive gave you a completely new perspective on how the modern world is engineered, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below letting me know what massive global topic you want me to untangle next. Until next time, I'm Sal, signing off. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the big picture, and I'll see you in the next one.